Okay, so the sun is going down, and I'm going to finish up this little video series here for you. Um, uh, at the end of that scene, Hamlet decides to use the play to try to get Claudius. He tries to use. He says, I'm gonna have the play something like the murder of my father." And then Claudius is gonna hear the play, and he's gonna freak out. So again, he noticed he says that the play he wanted the play to kind of inspire him. Um, but fundamentally, actually, I think I turned the page on this. Maybe I should flip it back around though. I'll turn it for you here. But he ends here. He ends this big speech by saying, "I'll have these players play something like the murder of my father before mine uncle. I'll observe his looks. I'll tent him to the quick. If he do blench, I know my course." Meaning, if he sees like the murder he committed up on stage, he's going to go white, and I'll know he's real. I'll know he really killed my father. Um, the spirit I have seen may be a devil, and the devil hath a power to assume a pleasing shape. Yea, and perhaps out of my weakness and my melancholy, he is a very potent with such spirits, and abuses me to damn me. I'll have grounds more relative than this. He wants to be sure that Claudius is the bad guy. The play's the thing, wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. That section there, again, is you can see, like Sidney, Sidney says art has the power to move, and he believes that this play, because Claudius killed Hamlet's father in a very specific way. He poured poison in his ear when his father was napping, and so Hamlet's going to have that happen on stage, and when Claudius sees it, he's going to freak out. Sidney's whole point is that art doesn't tell the truth. It's not about truth or falsity. It's about moving the audience and moving emotionally, or maybe moving physically to do something, but also moving emotionally. And the actor was moved emotionally by pretending to give a speech. He was moved by the characters in the speech, even though they're not real. And that Claudius could also be moved emotionally by seeing something that looks like his crime. And I remember Plato thought that, and Plato thought that art took people away from the truth. And then it sort of was a distraction. But Hamlet thinks he can use art to get at the truth, right? Did Claudius really kill, like the spirit said that Claudius killed him by pouring poison in his ear, but is that even true? Maybe it's Satan pretending to be his father, trying to trick him so that he'll murder an innocent person and go to hell. And so Hamlet says, I'm gonna do this play in front of my father, in front of my uncle, to get at the truth. He's going to move him to get at the truth. So this is two things that Sidney was talking about, which is that art has the power to move, to inspire, to change emotions, but also you can be used to get at the truth, says Hamlet, which is opposite. So Sidney says Plato's wrong. Art can't lie because it's fiction. Fiction's a totally different thing than lies. Plato shouldn't have said that. But Hamlet also is against Plato, because Hamlet says, I'm going to use this representation of reality, right? My father was killed with poison in his ear, so I'm going to copy that. And Plato said those copies get us farther away from the truth. But for Hamlet, he thinks that thing can get him to the truth. Cool. I think actually, because I'm at the last video here and I've only got like 6 minutes left or something, I'm not really going to introduce the next philosopher a bunch. But go on the boards, on the discussion board, and find some stuff out. And again, study Hamlet. If you don't know what's going on in Hamlet, you're going to be really bored when I bring this up, because you're going to have no idea who any of these people are. So do the discussion boards, take a look at paper one, and start thinking about your favorite work of art. Remember, you can always email me any ideas you have for papers. If you feel stumped, you don't know how to get started, you don't know what to write about, just send me a list of like your 5 favorite whatever, your 5 favorite movies, plays, books, and we can certainly, let's find something. This is the thing. Let's find something you're interested in, because you're a writing and lit major, which is a great thing to major in. So let's find you something that you actually care about, that's gonna do good stuff. All right, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, so maybe I'm going to introduce the next philosopher real quick, just because I feel like I'm stalling for time to get to 9 minutes, and that's stupid. Let me just start the next guy. So the next guy is Alexander Pope. An essay on criticism, 1711. So we've jumped another 200 years in the future, still in England, Shakespeare's country. But this is 1711, and Shakespeare and Sidney were alive in England in like 1600, 1590, that kind of thing. So Pope, you'll notice from just looking at it immediately, Pope's a poem. It is actually in the form of a poem. So Pope is a poet. And it's an interesting. This is my whole point: is that poetry is a type of thinking, movies are a type of thinking, painting is a type of thinking, music is a type of thinking. So this is something I do that other professors don't do. I think other professors like to give the students 20th century essays about literature, but I think a poem from 1711 could also be about literature and literary. It's literary studies. Pope has written this poem. It's basically like an essay. It's just he has a thesis statement, he has evidence, he has reasons, he has a. It's like it's nonfiction. I mean, it's like there's no characters in this poem. It's just Pope writing in poem shape the kinds of things you would probably put in an essay. So it's the kind of thing that I think really is valuable in terms of thinking about literature. And why do we have to just go to philosophers to find out how literature works? Shouldn't we also go to artists to find out how literature works? And Pope is a great poet and also a great thinker about art. And so I went to this one. And again, this is a much longer thing. If you want to read this poem, it's quite long. Pope's also not my very favorite author in the world. Pope is an interesting guy, though. Pope was very popular in his day. He was a little hunchback guy. He had some kind of muscular spinal issue that caused him to be kind of hunched over, and he just wrote the most beautiful poetry. Some of it's really quite lovely, and he also used some phrases in his poems. And some of the phrases that Pope came up with are so famous that people don't even know he came up with them. By the way, his last name is Pope. Alexander Pope is the guy's name. There's a joke in a movie called The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind where somebody quotes Pope Alexander, and the other guy has to say it's not Pope Alexander. He's not a pope. It's a guy named Alexander Pope. But if you've seen the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, in the middle of that movie, it is revealed the title of the movie comes from a poem by Alexander Pope. So actually, The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, if you've ever heard that before, if you've heard of that movie, that is a quotation from Pope that they use as the title of the movie. If you've ever heard anybody say, to err is human, to forgive divine, right, which means like human beings make mistakes, but if you forgive people for their mistakes, that's holy. To err is human, to forgive divine. That comes from Alexander Pope. He also said, those move easiest who have learned to dance. Very famous. You probably haven't heard that one. That's a little more rare, but it was more famous than that. It was more famous in years past. And that also is Alexander Pope. So Pope is quite a popular writer and a quite kind of famous writer. And so much of what he did was he wrote a lot of silly poems. He wrote a poem about stealing a piece of a girl's hair, but he wrote it in this like comically over dramatic style where it's like a giant epic sort of war poem. Like Homer and Virgil, who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Aeneid. But so it's like a silly poem where it's about stealing a lock of a girl's hair. But the way he writes about it, you'd think he was writing about the end of the world and civilizations collapsing. Actually, if you've ever seen the movie Hot Fuzz, it's actually quite similar to that, which is another movie that, like the Pope poem. It's a movie about just like regular normal crime, but they treat it like it's an exciting action movie all the time, and that's the joke. So Pope is kind of an interesting guy, and he wrote this long poem, and I've only grabbed about 2 pages of it for you, but it's his essay on what do you think art should be like. And you can see right from the very first sentence, first follow nature, right? We talked about this with Sydney. What does nature mean? It means reality. So he says art should follow reality. First follow nature. The correct way to do art is to copy reality exactly, to be realistic. That's what he wants. This is the guy. Now, I talked about most people only have 2 ways of looking at art. Number 1, it should be realistic. That's Pope. And number 2 is that it should be the emotional expression of an author, and that's Wordsworth. And there's about tons of other ways to look at art, but those are the 2 most famous. And the one that says art should be realistic really primarily comes from Pope is like he didn't invent the concept, but it's like an early. He's a very famous statement of it, I guess, is Pope. So we'll be covering Pope next time, and I'll cover that for you. I just wanted to kind of briefly introduce him to you, and we'll pick it up next time with that. So thank you for watching these videos, and I hope that you're continuing to watch them. I know it's a crazy time and a crazy place to be alive, but anyway, thanks for doing it, and I'll see you soon.